In early September 2010, Pastor Terry Jones, a minister from a small congregation in Gainesville, Florida, sparked a media frenzy when he announced his mission to burn copies of the Quran. He dubbed his plan Burn a Quran Day. The Society of Professional Journalists has a code of ethics which all media professionals are urged to embrace. Examine their own cultural values and avoid imposing those values on others. Avoid stereotyping by race, gender, age, religion, ethnicity, geography, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, or social status. Support the open exchange of views, even views they find repugnant. Recognize that gathering and reporting information may cause harm or discomfort. Pursuit of the news is not a license for arrogance. Show good taste. Avoid pandering to lurid curiosity. Encourage the public to voice grievances against the news media. Admit mistakes and correct them promptly. Expose unethical practices of journalists and the news media. Abide by the same high standards to which they hold others. On May 10, 1933, the Nazis burned 25,000 books, including those written by Jewish poet Heinrich Heine. Books are the repositories of histories, of identities, of values. They are the soul of a civilization. A society must abandon basic decencies in order to muster the immoral courage to burn books as a celebratory act. On December 5, 1975, numerous firebomb attacks were made on Christian churches throughout northern Lebanon in retaliation for burning a truckload of copies of the Quran. Overall, there were 17 deaths and numerous injuries as a result of the event. In 2005, prison guards and interrogators stationed at Guantanamo Bay Prison deliberately damaged copies of Islam's holiest book, the Quran, by flushing it down the toilet in order to torment the Muslim captives of the prison. A week later, the New Yorker magazine quoted Pakistani politician Imran Khan saying, "This is what the U.S. is doing, desecrating the Quran. This incident has caused upsets and riots in parts of the Muslim world." In 2006, 75-year-old Danish cartoonist Kurt Westergaard caused an international controversy with his satirical drawing of the Prophet Muhammad. In 2008, a pastor at the small Westboro Baptist Church in Topeka, Kansas, set fire to Qurans on street corners and filmed it happening. Did you know that? No. Why didn't you know? Because the event was ignored by press and broadcasters.
Therefore, to allay and hopefully appease the wrath of God, which he has threatened for such blasphemy, Westboro Baptist Church will picket the Iraqi embassy in Washington, D.C., and there burn a copy of the Quran in utter contempt for such base lies foisted by a charlatan Muhammad upon the sons of men. Deuteronomy 12:3.
Recently, a whirlwind of controversy emerged after plans to build an Islamic cultural center approximately 4 blocks away from Ground Zero were announced. The controversy ushered in the kind of anti-Muslim sentiment that supported Jones's efforts.
Well, you'll notice the public debate over the proposed Islamic center near Ground Zero has died down of late. It doesn't mean passions still aren't very strong on it, but one candidate is hoping to keep the debate front and center. Her name is Renee Elmers, and she's a Republican candidate for Congress, not in New York, but in North Carolina. Hasn't stopped her, though, from making the proposed mosque a centerpiece of her campaign. She has a new commercial out this week about the mosque controversy, and listen very carefully to the language she uses, basically interchanging the word Muslim and the word terrorist.
The terrorists haven't won, and we should tell them in plain English, no, there will never be a mosque at Ground Zero. I'm Renee Elmers, and I approve this ad.
At the center of this cultural conflict emerged Pastor Terry Jones as the face for the demonization of Islam. Jones, a former hotel manager, gun-carrying, avid Mel Gibson fan, preaches his sermons to an audience no larger than 50 families. So this begs the question, how did this man become one of the most talked-about news stories of the year? With the extraordinary information flow available through the modern media, those seeking to transmit terror apparently need be concerned only with communicating an atrocity of sufficient violence and horror to attract the media. However, to translate terror into political power, to succeed in employing terror as a tactic within a strategy of political conflict, terrorists must not only be able to momentarily seize the public agenda, but also have the capability to control it. It should be recognized that the modern media, while seemingly a giant impersonal apparatus, is indeed composed of individual persons, each seeking to achieve personal aims, and each susceptible to human failings.
Let me ask you about Pastor Terry Jones.
Pastor Terry Jones, who's planning to commemorate 9/11 by burning Korans.
Well, a guy by the name of Terry Jones, he's got a brilliant idea.
And Pastor Terry Jones joins us now.
Gainesville, Florida today to talk faith, hate, and free speech with Pastor Terry Jones.
And Dr. Terry Jones, a senior pastor at the Dove World Outreach Center from Florida.
Why have we paid so much attention to this lone pastor in Florida?
By that pastor in a tiny church in Florida.
This chart shows that anti-Muslim sentiment and the New York Mosque were the number 2 and 4 stories for the week of September 6th through the 12th. Terrorist atrocities, an attractive source of sensational coverage, sell the news and provide these crucial short-term profits. While the American media focused primarily on Terry Jones, here are some of the things that may have been overlooked. Due to deadly floods throughout Pakistan, the UN estimates that there were over 1,800 fatalities and 14 million citizens were displaced from their homes. The female American hiker Sarah Shord, who was imprisoned in Iran for over a year on charges of espionage, was released on $500,000 bail. A landslide in the Oaxaca region of Mexico, following a long period of heavy rain, buries hundreds of homes. At least 11 people are missing. In India, 193 people were killed and hundreds were injured during flash floods that destroyed homes, a hospital, and a university. A Japanese military tanker, the M-Star, was severely damaged due to a terrorist attack made by a group directly linked to Al-Qaeda. During August, severe mudslides that occurred in northern China killed 1,156 people, and 588 are still missing. The African country Niger faced the worst hunger crisis in its history. The UN estimates that over half of the population, nearly 7.3 million people, are in desperate need of food. Salience is the degree to which an issue on the agenda is perceived as relatively important. An agenda is a set of issues that are communicated in a hierarchy of importance at a point in time. Agenda setting offers an explanation of why information about certain issues and not other issues is available to the public in a democracy, how the public opinion is shaped, and why certain issues are addressed through policy actions while others are not. This chart shows the number of times Terry Jones or Koran burning was mentioned on these networks in only a 24-hour period. Notice that in typical agenda-setting research, just the number of news reports about an issue are counted, not the exact content of these news stories. So, the media agenda is rather a gross indicator of the coverage accorded to an issue. Repetition sets the public agenda through the continual hammering away of the media on the same issue. In the case of the media's coverage of political terrorists, the end result could be the formation of erroneous perceptions by the public. The images of political terrorists, as portrayed by the media, affect the public's perception. The issue of media responsibility in the coverage of political terrorism can be viewed from 3 functional categories. 1. Refrain from inspiring terrorists. 2. Avoid participating in terrorist atrocities. 3. Avoid tactical errors while covering atrocities. This chart shows the extent to which each media sector focused on anti-Muslim sentiment, and this chart shows the week's top newsmakers. The following clip shows noted journalist Ariana Huffington scrutinizing the media coverage of Pastor Terry Jones.
When I was watching events unfold around the balloon boy, another known story that captivated the media. But it is really stunning. This is a man who's clearly disturbed, and we are giving him all that attention. It's really disturbing to think of what are the copycat stunts we are going to be encouraging by having the Secretary of Defense call him, the Commander-in-Chief discussing what he should do or should not do. He's a nutcase, and by giving him this kind of attention, who else is going to insert themselves in this 3-ring circus, basically?
But do you think that initially the whole debate over
whether or not to build this Islamic Cultural Center and mosque near the site of Ground Zero set the stage for what we have seen around the country?
Well, there is definitely, Suzanne, a continuum of intolerance. The people who are saying that we should not allow the construction of a mosque to proceed near Ground Zero are people who are basically violating a fundamental principle of American democracy, which is the freedom to worship, the freedom to build a church or a synagogue or a mosque on private ground. And we need to stick by these principles, because otherwise, what are we fighting for?
Through the coverage of terrorists and their atrocities, the news media can also bestow status. The result and clear danger of this phenomenon is that terrorists committing such heinous crimes as kidnapping and murder can be transformed from common criminals into political figures. The aggressive trend towards sensationalism in newscasting, which accelerated in the 1960s, has apparently continued unabated. It is possible that while providing an intense spotlight for the high drama of terrorism, the news media tend to ignore the basic facts. The implications of Jones's Burn a Koran Day and the media's obsession with it were far-reaching. The fiasco incited riots, protests, and violence in a number of Muslim countries around the world.